Okay, I'm just setting up the live stream. Oh, it won't be long. Okay. So the AnyBuilds T-33 Shooting Star has been updated in Flight Simulator, so I thought it might be nice to come and have a look at it to see what they've done to it. So I've got the bare metal version of it on the floor here at Groom Lake in Nevada, USA. So we're going to go and have a look around not only flying the T-33 and its updated guys, but we're also going to go and have a nose around the scenery for Groom Lake, or Homey Air Force Base, as it is known officially now, or at least on CAA sectionals. So if we go and fly away from the aeroplane and speed up the drone camera on the way. So this is Groom Lake. So we're going to go and have a nose around the hangars because we're going to find some surprising things. So this is free scenery of Groom Lake, by the way. It's available from FlightSim.2 for nothing. So let's just get an overhead view of the base first. So they've revamped the satellite photography, obviously, and the runways, and everything else, essentially. So let's just speed the camera up even more so we can fly around the base. So it's a big, big base. And obviously you can see the famous runway that appeared on the satellite photograph many years ago that stretches off across the dry lake bed there. So this is Groom Lake. So if we were to look at it from altitude, the Air Force has compulsory purchased every piece of land you can see out to the horizon in all directions where there is plain sight or line of sight visibility of the airfield and its operations. So I've done a bit of reading about Groom Lake over the years. It was started in the 1950s to home the U-2 project, and then following that the Oxcart project, which became known obviously as the SR-71 and the Blackbird and the A-12 and all the various different variants run by the CIA and the Air Force along the way. But yeah, so initially this base was built for the U-2, and then following that obviously all sorts of functions after that. So it sometimes gets confused with other programs that have gone on. So Tonopah had the Russian fighter jets in the 80s for US Air Force pilots to go out and fight against. So yeah, there's various airfields around the area that have had other projects that sometimes get attributed to Groom Lake, but they're not. And also you'll get the conspiracy UFO brigade on about UFOs being based at Groom Lake. Almost certainly not. They will be somewhere far more secure because obviously since the 1990s this place has been known about. So it's interesting, isn't it? There's various conspiracy theories about another base called S4, which is nearby another lake called Papoose Lake, which is far more likely to have the more sensitive projects at it. So look, there's interesting stuff here. There's a baseball field there for the servicemen to have some break time. Okay, so let's go and have a fly around the hangars. So we'll come in low and see what we can spy around the base. So there's obviously an A-10 parked up down here, but we'll start off way in this corner. Look at all of the radar systems dotted around the outside of the base. Interesting that some of them are pointing straight up. So I wonder what they might be tracking. So there's something else up on the hilltop up there. We'll fly over there in a moment. There's another radar station, a big one. So we've got a Russian Mil helicopter here, which is interesting. There's quite a few Soviet assets dotted around that they've put into the scenery for a bit of fun, I guess. Let's slow this drone camera down now. So there's an A10. There's a U2. Let's have a look at this U2 model then. It's nicely done, isn't it? And there's one of the cars that are used. There's even a pilot down here, look, with the proper U2 kit on. How cool is that? But they use the cars alongside. I wouldn't be surprised if this was stolen from some sort of, or not stolen, borrowed from some sort of graphics library, because obviously they do use high-performance cars to get these wheels attached on the U2. And to you know, to chase the plane on the runway. So there's some sort of autonomous aircraft here. Not seen this one before. It appears to have a name on it. Bayraktar Akinci. So if you just search for Groom Lake on FlightSim.2, you'll find this very easily. But I will afterwards put a link in the notes of the video as well. So there's what's that? An F-15E parked up in this hangar here. I'm not sure if there's any other airplanes down in this corner of the base. Oh, yes there is. Oh, there's another rather interesting one behind the F-16 here. So here's F-16. So adversary tactics, look on the livery there. So this is an aggressor aircraft. So quite often fly-by-wire jets are used with alternate programming on their fly-by-wire control systems to allow them to simulate other aircraft. And the F-16 is used a lot for that kind of thing. So behind it we have an F-23 or YF-23, painted up with a Russian marking on the tail, which is interesting. Obviously for a bit of fun, but the YF-23, or is it? Let's have a look. Or is it? No, it's the Russian. It looks very similar to a YF-23, but it's the Russian. Is it Felon? Is its code name? Yeah, you can tell it from the YF-23, obviously by the engine exhausts. But this is the one, obviously, that appeared in Top Gun, that they fought against in Top Gun Maverick. It's an operational jet in Russia. There aren't many of them around. But it's, yeah, they're... Now, how would we say this? Is it 4th or 5th generation? Or is it 4.5th generation? But yeah, there's a few Russian jets they've dotted around in this scenery, which makes it really interesting. So yeah, when I first saw that first glance, I thought it was a YF-23, but obviously it isn't. So what's down through here? Now, this is a really interesting one. Obviously, either this is entirely fictional, or it's based on a piece of artwork on a Jane's magazine or something like that from the past. So it's obviously a potential aircraft that's been in development at some point. This may actually be what the Dark Star could really look like, but without, you know, without seeing what the stories, what the, you know, what magazine cover or whatever it was modelled after, you never know. There's a Skyhawk here. Draken International. I wonder what that's for. And we have a missile system over here. We have some trucks. So what's in the hangar next to the trucks? Is it something super secret? Is this a Star Trek prop? That's quite amusing, isn't it? I think that's a Star Trek shuttlecraft. I may be wrong. That's funny. But obviously, yeah, this is open source scenery, so they've put some really great little Easter eggs in here. So we have a missile system parked up on the ground over here. There's a Patriot, isn't it? Looks like it. Okay, this hangar over here is open, so we're going to go and have a nose. Or is it? No, it's just a shelf. So what else can we find around the airfield? Let's just straighten the camera up. Anything in here to see? Doesn't look like it. I guess this is barracks down this end of the airfield for the servicemen that are working here. I can only imagine that the little that is known about the layout of the buildings is from satellite photography. So obviously nobody's going to know anything about the operational side. Although there was a court case a few years ago. Some of the servicemen that worked here went to court about the disposal of various chemicals which caused them, effects to their health, which that might have exposed information about the base as well. So we've got now this is the Chinese 5th gen fighter, isn't it? Is it a Dragon? I'm not sure which one's which. There's a couple of different ones, isn't there? So they've put the model of that in here, which is quite cool to see. What else have we got? A drone. One of the big US Air Force drones. And parked across from it is an F-16. So I think it's a red flag F-16. Look, you can see the tail markings there. Again, used as aggressor aircraft usually. Let's go down, fly down through this hangar. So we can see now I always get the different helicopters mixed up, but this is obviously a stealth variant of a helicopter that was developed at some point. I'm not an expert on these, so I'm not going to guess what the code name was, but it's interesting to see them, isn't it? Very cool. If we fly across the tarmac here, there's an F-117 parked out in the open, which is interesting. Let's just pan around as we go across, see if there's anything in these hangars over here as well on the way. So obviously there we go, F-117 parked up. We all know what an F-117 looks like. A stealth bomber, or stealth fighter, but it's actually a bomber. Okay, let's carry on across the base. Looks like a couple of MiGs over here in these hangars. And another drone. Is that a Predator drone? I think it might be. So we've got is this an Su-27? Again, I can never quite remember which version's which. The tail details make a difference, don't they, with knowing which one's which out of the different models. And then there's a business jet of some description in there. What else have we got to go search at in scenery? So if we speed the drone camera up, coming down to the far corner of the base, all manner of trucks. God knows what they use them for. There's a C5A Galaxy over there on the left. We'll go and have a look at it in a moment. So we're just going to go shooting off across the airfield. I was wondering if there was going to be anything down here, but apparently not. So I guess the interest here, look, is what was hidden behind it. So there's some autonomous aircraft. So I guess this is the delivery of new assets to the airfield. Let's slow the drone camera back down so we can have a good look in detail. But it is great, isn't it? The amount of effort that's gone into this to make it interesting. There's a couple of servicemen working on them down here, look. Very cool. So obviously it's not the highest resolution versions of the 3D assets around on the ground, but it's still very well done. And what's over this side? Okay, we have a variant of the Osprey by the look of it, but not one that we've ever seen. Obviously an autonomous version of it. Or something similar to it. Let's put it that way. Okay. So there's the basic look around the Groom Lake airfield here. Obviously you can see there's lots of other bits and bobs dotted around. I will admit I was a little bit disappointed that they haven't included any of the really outlandish stuff, like, you know, a base in the hillside over at Papoose Lake or anything like that, but I guess that would be a completely separate scenery. So we are here with the updated T-33 Shooting Star from InnyBuilds, which we're going to take for a flight. So apparently it's got a vastly updated flight model and all sorts of fixes throughout the aeroplane. I doubt we'll notice a lot of them because we're just going to take it for a basic flight. But hopefully it will remain interesting. So let's go and switch over from the drone camera to the normal external view and jump inside. We'll pull up the little tablet, or the mobile phone app I should say. We'll say we don't want the ladder anymore, we don't want the chocks anymore. All of the external stuff is removed. We'll close that again. Then we'll lower down in here. And we'll put the battery on and the generator on. And then we'll full close. Oh, I thought we would full close the interesting. What's it not? Why is it not doing that? Have I killed the aeroplane while we've been messing around? So battery is on, generator is on. I'm just going to go and change the sound over so it's coming through my headset as well. Oh, maybe we have to do part close first. Yes, we do. Then we do full close, and then we can lock it. Okay, can we remember how to fire this thing up? I think I've taken the covers off the engines, haven't I? Yeah. So we want to start the engine up. Whoops. Again, tricky to hit the start switch in this thing. I'm trying to get the mouse on it, look, so it will put an up arrow on it. There it goes. So we're going to watch the needle come up. While that's happening, we need to go and put the fuselage fuel on, while I remember. Then ignition. And then the starter can go off. Can put the pitot heat on. Just having a quick look around the switches. We're not going to be using any of this, but It's interesting just to see what's been preset or what hasn't been preset along the way. So we're going to put the inverters on now. And we'll get the attitude indicator working. Let's go and calibrate the altimeter. So we've got this set to fuselage fuel. We can move fuel over from the other tanks back into the fuselage as we fly along. It's fairly straightforward to do. If we just come down here and look underneath, we're going to put the radios on. Not that we'll be using them, but it's worth having it there. So just checking around the major sections of the cockpit, seeing if there's anything obvious that we've missed. I don't think we have. Okay, so where's the external lights while we're having a think about this? So there's landing gear configuration. Seeing what switches we've got available to us that actually work. I know all this stuff works because I've used it before. So, oh, here we go. Lights are on. We'll put them on bright and steady. So let's go and have a look outside. See what we've got. We've got the lights on then. It's just interesting to have a look around, isn't it, and see what has been implemented and what hasn't. So we've got the smoke systems over here as well. Okay, should we take it for a fly? Let's see how much this flight model has been updated. So, head tracking on, centre it up, park and brake off. Now, which way is the wind today at Homey? So we want to go right turn. I don't know why I'm calling it Homey, because everybody knows it's Groom Lake. So we're going to have a fly around. Up on top of the hill up there, you can just about see it. There's an enormous radar installation, obviously for tracking anything coming anywhere near this place. I read a fantastic story a while ago about a private pilot. I think he did the mail run or something. It was some sort of logistics operation that he was a pilot for. And he would do these dead-eye flights past Groom Lake in the distance, out on the, the perimeter of the box, I think they call it. The, the no entry fly zone. But he realized that there was a certain frequency used. I don't know how they discovered this, whether somebody told them. There's a certain radio frequency that if you communicated over it or used or sent a signal over it, it switched on the runway lights at Groom Lake. So from 20 miles out, flying along the edge of the box, they could get the airstrip to light up at Groom Lake. I'm not sure if somebody found out or they traced that somebody was nearby when the lights came on, but had to pack it in. So I think somebody went and had a word and said, don't do that. I'd love to know the story though of how it got out, about what frequency the airfield lights were responding to. So we're going around the back of the C5. Should we have a look from outside? Going a bit fast, aren't we? So it's the far runway we have to use. We're not allowed to use the nearest runway, it's out of service. We're going to put flaps to takeoff configuration. You see that there? I think it might be interesting while we're doing this test flight of the T-33 to take it up to say 30 or 40,000 feet and put it into a dive and see if it will go supersonic, because it should. And it'd be interesting to see if they've simulated the sound disappearing in, you know, the local camera view when you get to above Mach 1. So it should get almighty quiet for the pilots once you've gone supersonic. It'd be fun to find out. I wonder what the yellow markings are for on the apron. Yeah, they changed the aerodynamics a lot. That comes off the ground a lot easier than it did. So we're coming up to 250 knots, climbing at about 5,000 feet a minute, which is pretty impressive stuff, isn't it? So if we bank round to the left, and we'll go for the mountain range alongside Groom Lake and go and overfly that radar station. Excuse me. So it's up on one of these hilltops. Up to 300 knots. Here we go, we can see it. So We're looking at this radar station on top of the hill. Interesting. Wonder if we can get a view from outside of it. So they basically leveled the top of the hill to put it up there. So shall we carry on round and do a touch and go? Try not to stall the aeroplane now. We're down to 180 knots. So we'll do a touch and go just to get a feel for the updated T-33. Then we'll go and climb to altitude and do that supersonic test I was talking about. It's a great looking aeroplane, isn't it? I wonder if they've made any updates about the adverse yaw on roll or anything like that. We'll have a play with it in a minute. So how are we doing for speed? 200 knots. So we'll bleed some of that speed off as we make the turn back towards the airfield. So we'll do that now. Apparently it glides a lot better than it did in the past. So yeah, it's not wanting to lose speed in a hurry. Going full flaps is forcing it to. So it does say in the release notes of the updated aeroplane that they've been in touch with pilots of real T-33s, and you do have to plan a bit further out because it doesn't lose speed in a hurry. Now, have I killed the engine? I think I have. In which case, I don't think I'm going to make it to the airfield. I've just raised the flaps back up to hopefully eke this out to get to the apron. So rule number one, if you're dead sticking, is don't leave the flaps down. So what have I done to the engine? Let's roll this to a stop. So we were dead stick. How have I managed to kill that then? Let's go and see what we did. Did we run it out of fuel? I think we may have done. So we were busy thundering around the sky, not checking on fuel. So what we can do then is go and transfer from one of the other tanks. Is it going to do it? What have we got? Where have we got some fuel? Although presumably with no engine, we've got no power to do anything like that. Let's go and have a look and see if we've emptied it completely. No, we've got fuel in the wing tanks, so let's guess. I think I must have stopped the engine by accident. Ah! This is so fiddly. Right, okay. Pressure's coming back. RPM's coming up. We managed to kill the engine then on approach. So it's obviously something new to be conscious of, that you can do that. Interesting, look. Didn't like it. Put the starter back on. So, the ignition was on when we started that sequence, so let's see how far we get this time. So if I go for ignition, what have we done? And now we're filling the fuel tank back up. We'd run out of fuel in the fuselage fuel tank. And this is one of the things that was drilled into the crews of the real aeroplane to be careful of. So the internal fuel tank isn't very big, but there's obviously in the wings and the drop tanks there's a lot more fuel. So you have to refill it essentially. So does that mean then we can go for ignition again now? Now we have some fuel. Yes, it does. Interesting. There's always something to learn, isn't there? So let's go and transfer some from the next tank and take it back up to 100% full on the fuselage. So it feeds from the fuselage, but you have to keep topping the fuselage tank up because it's not very big. So we're just waiting for that, and then we can stop feeding. If you overfill the fuselage tank, it will dump the fuel that you're pumping into it. So it's just something to be aware of. Should we see if we can do a takeoff in this short amount of runway then? So takeoff, we've got the flaps back to takeoff. It's interesting, isn't it? If you dump the throttles, it does that. You have to be smooth. Okay, off the brakes. Full throttle. So indicated airspeed is showing about 75 knots. 100 knots. Let's start rotating early and see what happens. And we're off the ground. Gear up. Flaps up. Reduce the throttle back to about 95%. It's all good fun, isn't it? So we're going to try this sound barrier thing. I wonder if we can overstress the engines if we run them flat out for too long. So you'll see that on the percentage, you can go beyond 100% on the engines, only just above 100%. So climbing out, coming up through 8,000 feet. So we'll turn to about 140 degrees in a moment. Try to remain within sight of the airfield. So let's let the nose down and get some speed up. We're just below 200 indicated at the moment. Find out what the actual reciprocal is. (146 degrees). I think it was in that region. So there we go, we're on the reciprocal of the runway now. Get some speed up, so up to 250 knots indicated. Coming up to 15,500 feet shortly. So let's see if we level out for a while. Get some speed up. And then we'll go upstairs. So we're climbing at 2,000 feet a minute. There's Groom Lake below us. Coming up to 17,500 feet. It's all in aid of going supersonic to see what happens. We're going to climb up to about somewhere between 30 and 40,000 feet. For a bit of fun, we could go and turn the smoke on. Okay, let's get some speed back after that climb. Pull the aircraft back to level. So what are we up to at the moment? 24,000 feet. So we're going to start gently climbing again. And start to turn back again. So on about 320 degrees on the compass by the time we're facing the right way again. We'll just maintain 2,000 feet a minute. And look out over the desert. It's amazing out here, isn't it? There's Groom Lake behind us. I wonder if they have put any effects into the aircraft for supersonic flight. So look, fuselage fuel look, we're almost down to 50% again already. So all we need to do to fix that is pump one of the other fuel tanks back into it to fill it up. It's coming back up like 80%. But then stop pumping when you don't need it anymore. So we're about runway direction again over the top of Groom Lake, so let's have a look outside while we're still climbing. Coming up through 27,000 feet. So there's Groom Lake below us. We're still climbing. We're getting a bit slow, so let's just dip the nose. Go for a less climb rate for a while, get the speed up. Slide ourselves forward in the cockpit a bit, make it a bit more realistic. So 30,000 feet is just coming up. So what we'll do is we'll climb to about 36,000 and then we will turn about and come in back towards the airfield in a gentle descent and see what happens. Do we actually get there? There is a Mach meter here, look. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do. Because the real aeroplane could go supersonic in a descent. Whether this will allow us to, I don't know. And whether we'll lose control, I don't know. Because it hasn't got a flying tail. $32,500. Oh, I've been invited to join a group. I'm afraid I don't join groups because I just don't have the time to devote to being a member of anything. I founded Virtual Flight Online, but I very rarely have time to get involved in it anymore. And I don't mind helping from a technical side because it's kind of my job, my world. You know, that sort of stuff I can do standing on my head with setting up web servers and all the rest of it. Yeah, we're showing a very low speed on the indicated airspeed, so we're going to level out fairly soon. We're coming up to 34,000 feet, so let's just keep an eye on that climb rate, hold it at just above zero for a while, just to edge ourselves up to say 35,000. Hopefully get some airspeed back. And we'll see if we can go supersonic. So you can see the Mach meter is coming up, even though the indicated airspeed isn't really showing much of a climb because we're up in the thin air, obviously. But you can see the Mach meter is increasing. So Mach 0.5 at the moment in level flight. 0.55. Mach 0.6. .65. So let's go and push the engines, the final bit then. So we're pushing them just above 100%. 0.7. And we'll do this turn back towards the airfield. Just try to do a level turn. So we're looking to turn back to about 145 degrees, won't we? So there's the airfield then there. .85 has come up just in the turn, look. We're still gently climbing back up to altitude, and we're still increasing in speed. Look, coming up for Mach 0.9. Actually, no, that's the compass. What am I talking about? Or is it? No, that should be. This might not read it correctly, of course. Let's find out. Let's find out what happens to this on the indicated airspeed then. So we're going to climb again. Get to at least 35,000. See, that's dropping off. So this meter doesn't really measure it correctly. So yeah, that is Mach number by the look of it. But it's not going to read it accurately because it's not designed to. Okay, let's try it. Yeah, so that isn't Mach number as we know it. It's just the decimals between the major numbers. That's all. Yeah. So 400 knots. Yeah, this isn't going to go supersonic. 500 knots. And it doesn't like it. But we have got the compression on the elevators. That was interesting. We lost elevator input there for a moment. Okay, so yeah, that's just the decimals then. It's not the Mach number. So I misread that. But we did get the compressibility on the tailplane, which was awesome. So, in the way of cheating this slightly, let's go and press Y for slew and lift ourselves into the air back to altitude. So we are now at 30,000 feet again. Let's go another few thousand feet then. 45,000 feet. Right, this is the right area to be in to go for a speed run. So there's Groom Lake. just bringing ourselves back around to the right direction. So we really are up near the ceiling of the aeroplane. But obviously we cheated to get here. So, speed, let's go for it. So, 250 indicated. $300, 350, 400, 450, 500, 550. We're going to start hitting compressibility. Here we go. And we're actually slowing down because we're hitting the thicker air, and it just doesn't have the power or the aerodynamics. And I have lost, until I came off the power, I lost elevator completely. The reason for that is the shockwave forming over the elevator. So how much fuel have we got left? 45% in the fuselage. Okay, let's bring this back in again then. That was good fun. Apparently, you can play games with this. It's got a lot more momentum now in the roll. So I'll let go of the stick now. Yeah, it rolled about another 90 degrees. So we'll fly the pattern to come back in. We'll go around the back of the base again. Well, that's good fun. So it got tantalisingly close to Supersonic, but obviously we would have lost control. If we'd have gone just a vertical descent from altitude, we might have got even closer, but I doubt we would have pulled out. There's that radar installation on the hill. raise the flaps. So there appears to be no taxiways off across. Oh, I say that. I think there's one here. Back towards the hangars. Yeah, just thinking about that with running out of fuel. If you manage to fuel correctly in the T-33, it's got an enormous range because it can carry a lot of fuel around the rest of the aircraft. It's just you have to remember to pump it in. And you can see there's aeroplanes now that are obviously people using the simulator that don't have the custom scenery, so they're showing hovering in midair because the accurate elevation of Groom Lake is a lot lower than the default scenery elevation. Should go and park ourselves in this nice hangar over here. Parking brake on, and then come down into here, and we know ourselves now we can just cut the fuel off and that will shut the engine very nicely. So turn things off, and the airplane dies. So I've made a mistake there though. I want to get the door open, so I need to go and put the battery on and the generator on, and then I can unlock this and open it, and then I can turn the generator and battery back off again. Without that I can't do that. And then we can go and put the chocks back in place, put the ladder back on the door, put the pins back in place, put the engine covers on, and I think that's all we need. So there we go. Job's a good one. Hope you've enjoyed that. So it was just a bit of fun really to go and check out the updated flight model on this T-33, which seems to be very good. It was really, really good how we went into a steep dive and lost the elevator control as we approached the sound barrier. We were still quite a long way from it, but yeah, it was interesting to see that happening. So yeah, and the Groom Lake scenery was remarkably good. So quite surprised at just how good it was, because considering it's a freebie as well. So it's from FlightSim.2. I'll go and look up the link for it and put it in as a pinned comment on the video as soon as I close the live stream. So yeah, this version or iteration of Groom Lake really is something else. I'd missed that stealth bomber earlier when we were looking around. There's a stealth bomber over here, parked on the ground. A B2. There's an F-16 in the hangar next to it as well. Let's go and have a look at the F-16. Anything special about this one? The Victim Vipers. Oh, and there's a autonomous aircraft as well over here. They've been testing these, haven't they, just recently? I say recently, the last 6 or 7 years. They did some carrier trials with the variant of them as well. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed the live stream today. I love the live stream comment from Benjamin Holmes that the F-86 loses all elevator at very high speed. Don't ask me how I know how. Anyway, take care everybody, and I'll see you again soon.